Hamburgers, a staple of rustic cuisine and fast food. And even though this dish is liked all over the globe, its origins remain unknown. First recipes that are considered the possible origin of today's hamburgers were already known in ancient Rome. Its direct predecessors, however, emerged in the 18th and 19th century. But it remains unclear whether the United States or Germany were the country where a ground beef patty and 2 slices of bread were combined into a sandwich first. One thing we do know, however, is that the hamburger was the driving force of the rise of the first fast food chain called White Castle, and later the now world-spanning fast food giant McDonald's. While burgers are indeed a delicious food, the high demand also creates significant ecological issues. Raising beef and growing the crops to feed it takes up a lot of space, which often is forcibly taken from the Amazon rainforest. It also entails high fresh water usage and plenty of emissions, making beef, even when locally raised, a threat to our climate. Hence it should be consumed only in small quantities. But there's also a plant-based way to fill the burger craving. There's no need to buy expensive meat replacement because mushrooms can perfectly fill this gap. However, many mushrooms don't have caps large enough to be used as burger patties. But that's okay, because with a few simple available ingredients, you can easily make delicious shroom burgers. The first recipe you will see was a test run that I would not recommend reproducing. While the result tasted good enough, it wasn't very convincing in terms of appearance and texture. But as a man of science, I learned and adapted to create a second version that turned out much better. The working steps remain the same, so stay tuned. For my test run, I used 150 grams of beach mushrooms, also known as shimeji, 150 grams of firm tofu, 30 grams of vegan butter, 4 tablespoons of oats, and 2 tablespoons of wheat flour for binding. 1.5 teaspoons of paprika powder, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, along with some salt and pepper. For the first step, roughly cut up your tofu and mushrooms and run them through a food processor. If you want fast food-like patties, you can grind them down to almost a paste, but if you prefer classic burger patties, just grind them until they have a consistency that resembles minced meat. A few larger chunks here and there are not a problem. Afterwards, add the dry ingredients, followed up by the vegan butter, which I cut into small cubes. The idea here was to use them as pockets of fat that would melt while grilling the patties, resembling how it would happen with ground beef. But it turned out that this does not work quite as well as I thought. I ended up with a rather moist paste, caused by both a too high amount of tofu and also the tofu not being pressed beforehand. Even though it is firm tofu, it does still contain a lot of water. Then I put the mass into the fridge for 2 hours before forming patties. I tried removing at least some excess moisture by using a paper towel before frying them on medium heat for about 3 minutes on each side. While they did not fall apart by themselves, they needed to be handled very carefully to not disintegrate. I then put them into very simple burgers along with ketchup, tomato slices and some salad. Taste-wise, they were fine, but due to their very soft consistency, I would not consider this experiment a success. Thus, I ran some highly advanced calculations on a supercomputer and developed a second recipe. This time I used 150 grams of oyster mushrooms, only 100 grams of firm tofu, which I also pressed for half an hour beforehand. The vegan butter was replaced with 3 tablespoons of olive oil. For binding I used 4 tablespoons of oats, but just 1 tablespoon of wheat flour. I also added 1 teaspoon of paprika powder and 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast flakes for flavor enhancement. This time I ground the shrooms and tofu more coarsely, which in the end produced much firmer patties with better texture and structure. I put them in the pan for about 3 minutes on medium heat on each side. Finally, I again added them to a basic burger with ketchup, tomatoes and salad. And those shroom patties do not disappoint. They offer light crispiness on the outside while remaining juicy on the inside. The taste of the oyster mushrooms dominates the taste experience, while being subtly accented by the pepper, paprika powder and yeast flakes. Besides the flavor, this recipe also delivers good nutritional value with a lot of protein. And to accommodate your own preference, you can easily prepare it with different mushrooms and spices. If you like this recipe, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so you will be notified when I upload my next video. Have a good one!